You're listening to Short History Shorts audio, where history speaks louder than images. South of Egypt, beyond the rocky cataracts of the Nile, stretched the lands of Nubia, rich in gold, cattle, and warrior cultures. In the eyes of the pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom, Nubia was both a threat and a treasure. And so, during this era of renewed centralization and ambition, Egypt turned its gaze southward with calculated aggression. The military campaigns into Nubia, particularly under the reigns of pharaohs like Senusret I and Senusret III, were not simply border skirmishes. They were systematic conquests designed to extend Egypt's influence, control vital resources, and secure its southern frontier against both rivals and rebellion. In the process, Egypt would construct a line of fortresses, redraw the cultural landscape, and embed its presence deep into Nubian territory. The first cataract at Elephantine had long been Egypt's traditional southern border. Beyond it lay Wawat and Kush, names synonymous in Egyptian records with exotic goods, fierce resistance, and untamed lands. Nubia was the primary source of gold, ebony, incense, and skilled archers, and its control was key not only to Egypt's economy, but to its sense of security. In earlier times, trade and diplomacy had defined Egypt's relationship with Nubia, but during the Middle Kingdom, that dynamic changed. The pharaohs of the 12th dynasty were not content with distant trade. They wanted control, direct, unambiguous, and permanent. Senusret I launched the first major Middle Kingdom incursions into Nubia, targeting key zones just beyond the First Cataract. He built the initial military outposts that would evolve into a chain of formidable fortresses, including Buhan, Milgissa, and Semna. These strongholds weren't just military installations, they were hubs of administration, customs control, and cultural influence. They allowed Egypt to monitor river traffic, extract tribute, and station garrisons deep in foreign territory. More importantly, they projected Egyptian power far beyond its traditional heartland. This infrastructure reflected a shift in Egypt's worldview. The pharaoh was not merely protecting Egypt, he was extending it. The greatest expansion came under Senusret III, one of Egypt's most militarily aggressive rulers. He led multiple campaigns into deeper Nubia, reaching as far south as the Second Cataract. In his inscriptions, often carved on the rocks of Semna and Uranati, Senusret III declared that Nubians were to be subdued, watched, and restricted. His rhetoric was blunt. No Nubian shall pass by it northward by water or by land. Egypt was not simply conquering, it was colonizing. These southern campaigns transformed Nubia into a militarized border zone, complete with checkpoints, regulations, and cultural imposition. Fortresses were stocked with provisions, garrisoned with troops, and integrated into Egypt's bureaucratic system. Inside them, Egyptian officials administered justice, collected taxes, and even married local women, blending occupation with assimilation. Yet Egypt's expansion was not only military, it was cultural. As Egyptian soldiers and administrators settled in these Nubian outposts, they brought with them the trappings of their civilization: language, gods, architecture, and social norms. Temples were built to Egyptian deities, local leaders were co-opted into Egyptian titles, and burial customs began to shift. For the Nubians of Wawat and Lower Kush, daily life became increasingly Egyptianized. In many respects, the Middle Kingdom's campaigns into Nubia marked one of the earliest examples of an imperial frontier, complete with garrisons, surveillance, and cultural export. However, this wasn't a one-sided domination. Nubia influenced Egypt as well. The military campaigns forced the Egyptians to study the terrain, adapt to new tactics, and engage with a society that was deeply proud, resilient, and rich in its own traditions. Nubian mercenaries were recruited into the Egyptian army, and Nubian-style archery gained fame across the Nile world. The interaction wasn't just one of conquest, it was also exchange. The lasting impact of Egypt's Nubian campaigns was profound. Economically, they secured access to gold mines and trading routes that fueled the prosperity of the Middle Kingdom. Politically, they reinforced the power of the central state, giving the pharaohs a tangible success to point to as proof of their divine strength. Strategically, the fortress system created a southern buffer zone that would endure for generations. And culturally, the integration of Nubian lands laid the groundwork for centuries of Egyptian-Nubian interaction, sometimes harmonious, often fraught, but always significant. In time, as the Middle Kingdom declined and the fortresses were abandoned, Nubia would reassert its independence. But the legacy of this period, of Egyptian ambition, military engineering, and imperial ambition, remained etched into the stones of Buan and the cliffs of Semna. Egypt's campaigns into Nubia weren't just episodes of war, they were the forging of an empire's southern shadow, a projection of power into the lands of gold and granite, where pharaohs hoped their names would echo forever.